Captain Rebecca Morgan stared at the communication screen in complete shock. Her coffee cup had fallen from her hands and shattered on the metal floor of the monitoring station, but she didn't even notice. The message displayed on her screen was unlike anything humanity had ever received before. The transmission came through official galactic diplomatic channels, bearing the dark red symbol of the hegemony of 7 worlds. Rebecca had seen that symbol in history books and intelligence reports. It belonged to the most powerful alien alliance in the galaxy, a group that controlled 3 entire spiral arms and commanded fleets numbering in the thousands. She read the message again, hoping she had misunderstood something. The words remained the same. Humanity had exactly 72 standard hours to surrender all their outer rim colonies and accept complete control under hegemony rule. There was no room for discussion or negotiation in the ultimatum. Rebecca worked alone on the deep space monitoring station called Cerberus 7. Her job was to watch for threats coming from the dark regions between star systems. She had expected to spend her shift tracking asteroid movements and space debris. Instead, she was reading what might be humanity's death sentence. The message included video recordings of 17 different alien species. Each recording showed the same thing. Alien leaders standing before hegemony commanders, formally surrendering their worlds and accepting tributary status. The recordings were meant to show humanity what happened to species that chose to resist. Every single one had eventually surrendered without firing a shot. Rebecca's hands shook as she began forwarding the message through encrypted channels to Earth Command. She knew the transmission would reach the highest levels of human government within hours. What she didn't know was how Earth would respond to such an impossible situation. The ultimatum explained in cold, mechanical language that the hegemony possessed overwhelming technological superiority. Their fleets contained weapons that could crack planets in half. Their shields could withstand the combined firepower of entire solar systems. Their armies had conquered civilizations that had existed for millions of years. According to the message, humanity's resistance would be pointless. The hegemony had studied human military capabilities for months. They knew exactly how many ships humanity possessed, where those ships were stationed, and what weapons they carried. The alien alliance was confident that humans would see reason and surrender peacefully. War Commander Thalen sat in his command chamber aboard the hegemony flagship Eternal Dominion, reviewing reconnaissance reports about human space. His scouts had been mapping human territories for weeks, taking detailed scans of every military installation and defensive position they could find. The reports painted a picture of a modest interstellar civilization. Humanity controlled roughly 40 star systems, with their main population centers clustered around their home world of Earth. Their military consisted of perhaps 200 vessels, most of which appeared to be outdated designs using primitive fusion engines and projectile weapons. Thalen felt confident about the coming operation. The hegemony had faced similar situations countless times before. A young species would expand into space, develop some basic military technology, and begin to think they were important. Then the hegemony would arrive with their ultimatum, and reality would set in. The war commander had personally overseen 12 such operations in his career. Each had followed the same pattern. Initial defiance, followed by desperate attempts at negotiation, and finally complete surrender when the young species realized the hopelessness of their situation. He expected humanity to follow the exact same path. His intelligence officers had prepared detailed profiles of human leadership. They identified the key decision-makers who would need to be convinced or intimidated. They mapped out human communication networks and identified which planets would be most vulnerable to blockade. Everything was proceeding according to standard hegemony protocol. Meanwhile, hegemony reconnaissance drones swarmed through human space with complete impunity. The small automated probes scanned military bases, shipyards, and defensive installations without encountering any resistance. Human forces seemed unable or unwilling to interfere with the surveillance operation. The drones transmitted their findings back to hegemony command vessels waiting at the edge of human territory. Each report confirmed what the war commander already believed. Humanity possessed no secret weapons, no hidden fleets, and no allies capable of providing meaningful assistance. They were completely isolated and outgunned. Rebecca finished transmitting the ultimatum to Earth Command and sat back in her chair. Through the observation windows of her station, she could see the vast emptiness of space stretching in all directions. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were positioning themselves for an attack that might come in less than 3 days. She thought about her family back on Earth. Her parents lived in a small farming community that had never seen war or conflict. Her younger brother was studying engineering at the Mars Technical Institute. None of them had any idea that their entire way of life might be about to end. The communication console chimed softly, indicating that Earth Command had received and acknowledged her transmission. Rebecca knew that right now, the most powerful people in human space were reading the same ultimatum that had terrified her. She wondered what they would decide to do. Part of her hoped humanity would find some way to negotiate with the hegemony. Perhaps they could work out a compromise that would allow human worlds to maintain some degree of independence. The alternative seemed too horrible to contemplate. If humanity chose to fight, they would be facing enemies with thousands of years of military experience and technology far beyond human understanding. But another part of Rebecca remembered the history lessons she had learned in school. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and somehow survived. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe Earth had secrets that even she didn't know about. The next 72 hours would determine whether humanity continued to exist as a free species or joined the long list of civilizations that had bowed before hegemony power. Exactly 24 hours after the ultimatum arrived, Earth's response came through every hegemony communication channel at the same moment. War Commander Thalen expected to receive a lengthy message filled with desperate pleas for negotiation or offers of partial surrender. Instead, he stared at a transmission containing only 7 words. Message received. Response inbound. Prepare accordingly. Thalen read the message 3 times, trying to understand what the humans meant. The words were simple, but something about their tone made him uncomfortable. There was no fear in the message. No desperation. Just a cold statement of fact that made the War Commander's skin crawl. His communications officer looked up from her console with confusion written across her face. Sir, the message was broadcast simultaneously across all our frequencies. Even our most secure military channels received it. How did they manage that? Before Thalen could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the flagship. The gravitational sensors were detecting something massive dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of human territory. The sensor readings made no sense. Whatever had arrived was generating a mass signature larger than anything in hegemony databases. Get me a visual, Thalen ordered, his voice betraying the first hints of concern. The main screen flickered to life, showing a view of the outer edge of human space. At first, there was nothing visible except stars and empty space. Then the computer enhanced the image, and Thalen felt his blood turn cold. A single vessel hung motionless in the void, but calling it a ship seemed inadequate. The thing was enormous beyond comprehension, dwarfing even the largest hegemony dreadnoughts. Its hull appeared to be constructed from dark gray material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, and weapon ports dotted its sides like the eyes of some ancient predator. Admiral James Harrison stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, watching displays that showed hegemony scanner beams bouncing harmlessly off his vessel's exotic matter hull. The ship had been humanity's greatest secret for over 2 centuries, constructed in the empty space between galaxies where no alien eyes could observe its creation. Sir, we're detecting multiple hegemony vessels attempting to scan our hull composition, reported Lieutenant Patricia Wells from her position at the sensor station. Their beams can't penetrate our outer armor. They have no idea what we're made of. Harrison nodded with grim satisfaction. The hegemony's databases contained detailed information about every known type of warship in the galaxy. They had specifications for hull materials, weapon systems, and engine designs used by hundreds of different species. The Retribution appeared in none of those databases because it had been built using technology that existed beyond the understanding of any known civilization. The massive vessel had been constructed from the remains of Earth's second moon, which had been quietly dismantled over the course of decades. The hollowed-out lunar rock served as the foundation for a mobile fortress that bristled with experimental weapons systems. Most of the ship's interior was dedicated to manufacturing facilities that could construct entire fleets using raw materials harvested from dead star systems. Lieutenant Wells, show me the hegemony response, Harrison ordered. The main screen displayed feeds from across alien space. Hegemony commanders were frantically trying to classify the human vessel and failing completely. Their analysis computers kept returning error messages when trying to process the Retribution specifications. The ship was simply too large, too advanced, and too alien for their systems to understand. Harrison had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. He had commanded human forces during the brutal colonial wars that most civilians preferred to forget. Those conflicts had taught humanity valuable lessons about warfare that no other species had learned. While the galaxy watched humanity expand peacefully through nearby star systems, Earth's best military minds had been developing weapons and strategies in absolute secrecy. The construction of the Retribution had required resources from dozens of solar systems and the combined efforts of humanity's greatest scientists and engineers. The project had been so classified that fewer than 1,000 people knew of its existence. Even most human military officers believed their species possessed only the modest fleet that alien scouts had observed. War Commander Thalen tried to maintain his composure as reports flooded in from across hegemony space. Every military installation was attempting to analyze the human vessel and coming up with impossible readings. The ship's mass suggested it should collapse under its own gravity, yet it moved through space with perfect stability. Its energy output was off the charts, but no known power source could generate that much energy without creating a miniature star. "How long has this thing been under construction?" asked his intelligence officer, staring at the technical readouts with obvious disbelief. "That's impossible to determine," Thalen replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Our scouts have been monitoring human space for months. There was no sign of any construction project this massive." The intelligence officer pulled up star charts showing human territory. "Sir, if they built this ship in secret, what else might they be hiding? Our entire assessment of human capabilities could be completely wrong." Thalen felt a chill run down his spine as he considered the implications. The hegemony strategy depended on accurate intelligence about enemy capabilities. If humanity possessed technology this advanced while appearing primitive, then everything they thought they knew about the species was wrong. Admiral Harrison activated the ship's communication system and prepared to broadcast a message throughout hegemony space. The transmission would reach every alien world simultaneously, carried by technology that made their fastest communication network seem primitive by comparison. The message would be simple and direct, just like Earth's initial response. But this time, the aliens would understand exactly what kind of enemy they had chosen to threaten. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity decided to stop pretending to be weak. Admiral Harrison stood at the command console of the HSS Retribution, studying the tactical display that showed the Kethmore system. The heavily fortified star system served as the hegemony's primary military training ground, where young alien officers learned the art of conquest. Massive orbital shipyards surrounded the system's main world, constantly producing new vessels for the alien fleet. "Target acquired, sir," announced Lieutenant Patricia Wells from her weapons station. "The outer planet shows no signs of life. It's just a dead rock, but it's roughly the same size as one of their inhabited worlds." Harrison nodded slowly. The demonstration needed to be clear and unmistakable. The hegemony leaders had to understand exactly what humanity was capable of doing to their precious worlds. Fear was often more effective than actual violence, and what Harrison planned would create terror throughout alien space. The dead planet designated as Kethmore 7 hung silently in the void, a barren world of rock and ice that had never supported life. Hegemony forces used it occasionally for target practice, blasting craters in its surface with conventional weapons. Today, it would serve a very different purpose. War Commander Thalen watched from his flagship as the human vessel approached the Kethmore system. His defensive platforms were fully charged and ready to fire. Hundreds of hegemony ships patrolled the area, their crews eager to finally engage this mysterious enemy. Surely the humans wouldn't be foolish enough to attack such a heavily defended position. "Sir, the human ship is moving toward the outer planet," reported his tactical officer. "They're ignoring our defensive positions completely. Should we open fire?" Thalen hesitated. Something felt wrong about this situation. The human vessel showed no signs of preparing for battle. Its weapon ports weren't glowing with energy buildup. Its shields weren't even raised. It moved through space like it was on a peaceful survey mission rather than approaching a military target. "Hold your fire," Thalen ordered. "Let's see what they are planning." The Retribution came to a complete stop roughly 1 million kilometers from the dead planet. From the bridge, Admiral Harrison could see the distant glow of hegemony defensive platforms and the running lights of alien patrol ships. None of them were moving to intercept his vessel. They seemed as confused as he had hoped they would be. "Charging the planetary reduction beam," announced Lieutenant Wells. "All safety protocols are disengaged. We're ready to fire on your command, sir." Harrison took a deep breath. The weapon they were about to use existed beyond the theoretical understanding of every known species in the galaxy. Human scientists had discovered how to manipulate matter at the quantum level, breaking the bonds that held atoms together. The process was clean, efficient, and absolutely terrifying to witness. "Fire," Harrison said quietly. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the Retribution's main weapon array. It was invisible to the naked eye, detectable only by the strange distortions it created in spacetime as it traveled toward its target. The beam struck the dead planet dead center, penetrating through rock and metal as if they were empty air. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The planet continued to rotate slowly on its axis, looking exactly as it had moments before. Then the quantum cascade reaction began. War Commander Thalen stared in horror as the planet started to dissolve. It didn't explode or break apart like worlds destroyed by conventional weapons. Instead, it simply began to fade away, as if someone was slowly erasing it from existence. The solid matter that had formed the planet for billions of years was being converted into pure energy. "What are we seeing?" whispered his science officer, her voice filled with disbelief. "This violates every known law of physics. Matter cannot simply cease to exist." The process took exactly 17 minutes. Chunk by chunk, the planet disappeared until nothing remained but a cloud of glowing particles that quickly dispersed into space. Where a world had orbited moments before, there was now only empty void and the horrified silence of thousands of hegemony observers. Thalen's hands shook as he tried to process what he had witnessed. His civilization had weapons capable of cracking planets in half or burning away their atmospheres. But complete molecular disintegration was beyond their wildest nightmares. The humans had just demonstrated the ability to erase worlds from existence with surgical precision. Admiral Harrison activated the communication system and began broadcasting across all hegemony frequencies. His voice was calm and professional, as if he had just completed a routine training exercise rather than demonstrating a weapon of unimaginable destruction. "Attention hegemony forces. What you have just witnessed was your diplomatic courtesy demonstration. You now have 71 hours to withdraw from all human territories and dissolve your confederation. Any hegemony vessel found in human space after this deadline will be classified as hostile and dealt with accordingly. This message will not be repeated." The transmission ended, leaving absolute silence across the alien communication networks. Hegemony commanders throughout their territories stared at their screens, trying to comprehend what they had just seen. Emergency meetings were called on every major world as alien leaders struggled to respond to this unprecedented threat. War Commander Thalen slumped in his command chair, feeling decades of military confidence drain away in a matter of minutes. Everything he thought he knew about warfare had just become obsolete. The hegemony possessed thousands of ships and millions of trained soldiers, but what good were conventional forces against an enemy that could simply erase planets from existence? His communications officer looked up from her console with terror in her eyes. "Sir, we're receiving reports from Intelligence Division. They found old classified files about humanity's true nature. According to these records, humans spent thousands of years fighting wars against themselves before they ever reached space. They've had more practice with violence than any other known species." Thalen closed his eyes and tried to think of any possible response to this situation. The demonstration had been perfect in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications. The humans weren't bluffing or trying to intimidate their enemies. They were simply stating facts about what would happen to anyone who opposed them. For the first time in his career, War Commander Thalen began to consider the possibility of retreat. The emergency council meeting lasted 18 hours as hegemony leaders from across the galaxy argued about their response to the human demonstration. High Chancellor Vex pounded his fist on the conference table as holographic displays showed the empty space where Kethmore 7 had once existed. "We cannot bow to these upstart primitives," Vex declared to the assembled commanders. "The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. If we surrender to humanity, every other species will see us as weak. Our entire empire will collapse within decades." War Commander Thalen shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had witnessed the planet's destruction firsthand and understood the true scope of human capabilities. But the High Chancellor refused to accept that any young species could threaten their ancient civilization. "Mobilize everything," Vex ordered. "Every fleet, every ship, every weapon in hegemony space. We will show these humans what happens when someone challenges our authority. Numbers will overwhelm even their advanced technology." The mobilization order went out across 7 star systems simultaneously. Fleet Admiral Robert Campbell received the message aboard his flagship while conducting routine patrol operations near the hegemony border. His second battle group consisted of 347 vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers. Campbell studied the tactical reports flowing in from across hegemony territory. 6 other battle groups were converging from different sectors, creating the largest military formation in recorded galactic history. Over 2,000 ships would participate in the attack, representing the combined military might of multiple civilizations. "Sir, our intelligence division has updated estimates of human fleet strength," reported his tactical officer. "They believe humanity possesses no more than 200 vessels total. Even with their advanced technology, they cannot possibly stand against our full military might." Campbell nodded, though something nagged at the back of his mind. The humans had managed to build their mysterious superweapon in complete secrecy. If they could hide something that massive, what else might they be concealing? Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching displays that showed hegemony fleets gathering throughout their territory. Human intelligence networks had been monitoring alien communications for months, providing detailed information about enemy ship movements and strategic planning. "Sir, they're massing everything they have," reported Lieutenant Patricia Wells. 7 complete battle groups are moving to converge on our position. Intelligence estimates over 2,000 enemy vessels. Harrison smiled grimly. The hegemony leaders were making exactly the mistake he had hoped they would make. They were thinking about this conflict in conventional terms, believing that superior numbers and firepower would guarantee victory. They had no understanding of how warfare had evolved beyond their primitive concepts. "Lieutenant Wells, plot intercept courses for all 7 enemy formations," Harrison ordered. "We're not going to wait for them to organize their attack. The hunt begins now." The Retribution vanished from its position near the former location of Kethmore 7, disappearing without any visible means of propulsion. One moment the massive vessel was hanging motionless in space, and the next it was simply gone. Hegemony sensor operators reported the disappearance with growing confusion and fear. Fleet Admiral Campbell was reviewing formation charts when his sensor officer screamed in terror. The human superweapon had materialized directly behind his fleet, appearing inside their defensive perimeter without triggering any proximity alarms. The massive vessel hung there like a dark moon, its weapon ports beginning to glow with deadly energy. "How did they get there?" Campbell shouted, but nobody had an answer. The human ship had somehow traveled 4 to 7 light-years instantaneously, moving through space in ways that violated every known law of physics. The attack lasted exactly 12 minutes. Campbell watched in horror as his entire fleet was systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to ignore conventional defensive measures. Hegemony shields, designed to withstand the most powerful energy blasts in their arsenal, collapsed like paper before the human assault. Lieutenant Susan Blake crouched behind an overturned console on the bridge of the cruiser Eternal Victory as explosions rocked the ship around her. Through the cracked viewscreen, she could see other vessels in their formation breaking apart under the relentless human attack. "They're not just destroying our ships," she whispered to the surviving communications officer beside her. "They're taking them apart piece by piece, like they're studying our technology while they kill us." The human vessel moved through the hegemony formation with impossible grace, its weapons firing with surgical precision. Each shot was perfectly calculated to disable specific systems or eliminate key targets. There was no waste, no random destruction. Every action served a deliberate purpose. When the massacre ended, only 17 hegemony vessels remained functional out of the original 347. The survivors limped away from the battle site, their crews traumatized by what they had witnessed. The human ship watched them go without pursuit, as if their escape had been planned from the beginning. Admiral Harrison studied the tactical reports from the engagement while the Retribution prepared for its next jump. The battle had provided valuable intelligence about hegemony ship designs and defensive capabilities. His weapons officers were already updating their targeting systems based on what they had learned. "Sir, we're detecting the second hegemony battle group moving through the Nexus sector," reported Lieutenant Wells. "They are maintaining radio silence, but our deep space sensors can track their engine signatures." "Set course for intercept," Harrison ordered. "They want to face our full military might. Let's show them what that really means." The pattern repeated across 6 different sectors over the next 18 hours. The Retribution would appear without warning behind or within enemy formations, eliminate the majority of hostile vessels in a matter of minutes, then vanish again before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack demonstrated that distance, numbers, and conventional military tactics were completely meaningless when facing humanity's ultimate expression of warfare. High Chancellor Vex received the casualty reports in stunned silence. In less than a day, humanity had destroyed over 1,500 hegemony vessels while suffering no losses of their own. The greatest military machine in galactic history was being systematically dismantled by a single enemy ship that could apparently be everywhere at once. The hunt was just beginning. High Chancellor Vex sat alone in his private chambers, staring at reports that told the story of complete military disaster. In just 4 days, the hegemony had lost over 1,800 vessels to a single human ship. Their greatest fleets were scattered wreckage floating in the void, and their most experienced commanders were either dead or fleeing in terror. The emergency communication system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission from the remaining fleet commanders. Vex reluctantly activated the holographic display, knowing what he would see. The faces that appeared were filled with defeat and desperation. "High Chancellor, we must surrender immediately," pleaded War Commander Thalen, his voice breaking with exhaustion. "The human vessel has appeared in 12 different sectors simultaneously. They're not following any known laws of space travel. Our forces cannot fight an enemy that can be everywhere at once." Admiral Korvac of the 5th Battle Group nodded grimly. "Sir, my sensors detected the human ship destroying installations in the Outer Rim while also engaging our forces in the core worlds. Either they have multiple vessels identical to the first, or they possess technology that allows them to exist in several places at the same time." Vex closed his eyes and tried to process this information. Multiple reports confirmed that the human superweapon had been sighted attacking different targets thousands of light-years apart within the same hour. Such capabilities were beyond anything in hegemony science or imagination. "What are our casualty estimates?" Vex asked quietly. "Over 90% of our military forces have been destroyed or disabled," Thalen replied. "The survivors are scattered across dozens of systems with no way to regroup. Our shipyards have been reduced to space debris. Our defensive platforms have been eliminated. We have nothing left to fight with." The transmission from the hegemony leaders reached Admiral Harrison while the Retribution was positioning itself near the galactic center. The message was brief and formal, containing the words that every human had hoped to hear. The Alien Confederation offered complete and unconditional surrender. Harrison read the surrender document with careful attention to detail. The hegemony promised to withdraw from all human territories, dissolve their military alliance, and never again threaten any human world. They begged for mercy and offered to pay tribute in exchange for being allowed to continue existing. Lieutenant Patricia Wells looked up from her communication station with curiosity. "Sir, how should we respond to their surrender offer?" Harrison's reply would become legendary among human military historians. His words were calm and measured, but they carried implications that sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. "Surrender implies they possessed something we wanted," Harrison said into the communication system. "They don't." The hegemony leaders who received this response felt their last hopes crumble into dust. The humans weren't interested in conquest or tribute. They weren't planning to rule over alien worlds or extract resources from defeated enemies. They had something far more devastating in mind. The Retribution began broadcasting a wide-spectrum energy field that interfered with hyperspace navigation throughout the former hegemony territory. Alien worlds that had been connected by trade routes for thousands of years suddenly found themselves isolated and unable to communicate with each other. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Turner worked at his analysis station, compiling intelligence reports that revealed the true scope of humanity's long-term planning. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. For over 2 centuries, Earth had been preparing for this exact conflict while appearing weak and divided to outside observers. "Sir, our investigation shows that humanity has been conducting secret military research in over 40 different star systems," Turner reported to Admiral Harrison. "They've been harvesting resources from dead worlds and building advanced weapons in the empty space between galaxies. The Retribution isn't unique. It's just the first of an entire fleet." Harrison nodded as he reviewed the classified files. Humanity had learned valuable lessons from their own bloody history. They understood that the appearance of weakness could be a powerful strategic advantage. While alien scouts observed their modest colonial expansion, Earth's greatest minds had been developing weapons that existed beyond galactic understanding. The Retribution wasn't just a warship. It was a mobile fortress factory capable of constructing entire fleets using raw materials harvested from asteroid fields and dead planets. Its manufacturing bays could produce everything from fighter craft to planet-killing weapons, all while remaining completely self-sufficient. High Chancellor Vex received the final human transmission while cowering in a bunker deep beneath his homeworld's surface. The message was broadcast simultaneously to every remaining hegemony world, ensuring that all surviving alien leaders heard it at the same time. "The Hegemony Confederation is dissolved," Admiral Harrison announced. "Your trade routes are permanently closed. Your worlds are quarantined from galactic civilization. Any attempt to rebuild your military forces or threaten other species will result in immediate extermination. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." The broadcast ended with technical specifications for the hyperspace disruption field that now surrounded former hegemony space. The energy barrier would prevent any vessel from entering or leaving their territory without human permission. The alien worlds were now prisoners on their own planets. News of the hegemony's total defeat spread throughout the galaxy within hours. Species that had lived in fear of alien conquest for generations suddenly realized that the balance of galactic power had shifted permanently. Desperate envoys from dozens of civilizations began traveling toward human space, carrying offers of alliance, tribute, and unconditional non-aggression treaties. Admiral Harrison made his final log entry as the Retribution began its journey back toward Earth. His words would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. They expected us to negotiate because civilized species always seek diplomatic solutions when faced with superior force. They failed to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. We're not civilized. We're domesticated. And today, the leash broke. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced its arrival as a galactic power in the most definitive way possible. The age of alien dominance was over, and the age of human supremacy had begun. The hunt was complete. The lesson had been taught. The galaxy had learned to fear the species that had once seemed so harmless and weak.